Well, Libby, that was a lot of fun, but we got more fun to come, right?
Of course. That was awesome. I loved getting to watch that robot work, and quite honestly, I got very distracted watching it kind of pick away at those packages. Our final segment tonight, though, for National Robotics Week is with Disney and the very cool world of animatronics with Walt Disney Imagineer Asa Kalama. Asa, welcome to our show tonight. Thank you for
Hey, how
being
are you
here.
guys? Nice to see you.
We're
We're
doing
good.
great.
Thank you so much for being
I,
Thank you for
I'm
being
still
part of
geeking out.
the show, the celebration tonight. I know the internet, it happens. Also, I'd love to talk a little bit to start off so that our chat can get a chance to know what you do and ask you questions. What is your role at Walt Disney Imagineering?
Sure. I'm a creative director with Walt Disney Imagineering. I've been with the company for over 16 years. I started in the research and development group where I spent a considerable amount of time working on free-ranging robots, things like the Muppet Mobile Lab and Lucky the Dinosaur. And most recently, spent about 5.5 years working to create Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. In my role of creative director, I have the profound opportunity to work with some of the most talented people on the entire planet to create immersive experiences for guests to enjoy at Disney theme parks all around the world.
Wow, it sounds like an amazing world that you get to be a part of. I know Galaxy's Edge has been such a cool experience for so many people. I've yet to experience it, but I cannot wait till I can finally go down. But obviously, you're involved in a lot of cool projects, and when you think about Imagineering, it's a lot of it is taking a concept like a cartoon character, something that's only existed in 2D space, and then turning that into an interactive and immersive piece of reality. So, what is that process like from start to finish?
Yeah, one of the things that's really exciting about the work that we do is we so often have to translate things that have never existed in reality into the real world. And so, what we love to do is find fun and creative ways to misuse existing technologies or sometimes invent completely brand new ones to bring to life various experiences. Now, when it comes to characters, a lot of the times they have different shapes or different form factors that could possibly be brought to life by any other means other than audio animatronic technology. What you're actually seeing up on screen right here at the moment is one of the figures that we created for the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run attraction at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. What's so exciting about this figure is it's one of the most advanced audio animatronics figures that we've ever created. It's got over 50 different functions, giving it this incredible ability to perform in a very believable and expressive way. But even though we use technology to bring these things to life, it doesn't start with technology. Everything that we do starts specifically with the story. So we start first with, okay, what's the scene that we're trying to bring to life? What are the characters that we think are really important to bring it to life? From there, we start to do the actual design to think a little bit about, what is the physicality of the character? What is the shape of it? What is it ultimately going to wear? And so we'll spend a lot of time doing concept paintings and sketches and renderings and sometimes even pre-visualization to nail down what it is that we're trying to accomplish long before we actually start engineering anything. Once we have a sense for how all that's going to work, the next step is starting to figure out, well, how is it going to move? And sometimes that even starts with somebody literally acting out and performing the different behaviors or gestures that we think we want to ultimately be able to deliver. And then we'll sit down with our mechanical engineering team and figure out the best way to engineer the figure to be able to give us that creative performance that is so important to us that we're really looking to deliver. And then once we have sort of the underlying mechanics, then we have to bring it to life with animation. And there we turn to our amazing both controls teams as well as figure animators who have this innate ability to bring life to, what would otherwise be, electronics and motors and gears and aluminum, but make the guest truly believe that it's a living entity.
That's definitely something that I always associate with the Disney experience is that magic of, oh wow, this is real. I'm in this. That true immersion has just been magical. Seems cheesy and overused, but truly magical.
Yeah, and there's so much that goes into this, but I think about you've been showing us Hondo Ohnaka, who his character is this rascally but charming pirate, and his personality is just incredibly bold. How do you convey a character who's so beloved and has that distinct personality? How do you convey that via animatronics?
Yeah, we had an incredible partnership with Lucasfilm and the original creators of the character for the animated series. So Hondo appears both in Rebels and the Clone Wars TV shows, and Dave Filoni, the original creator, worked very closely with us to make sure that we were capturing the essence, the spirit of who Hondo Ohnaka is, first not only in the sculpt, secondly in the amazing performance of the live voice actor, Jim Cummings, and then ultimately in the actual animation of the figure itself. And that's one of the reasons why we really push to make this figure have so many functions, is because the character of Hondo is so expressive. He is a big hand talker, and making sure that we had the requisite number of functions to really make that feel believable.
So under the hood of Hondo, is there, obviously there's a lot going on there. There's so many functions and there's so many degrees of freedom. Is there something that you're especially proud of on the technological side that you did? Because, you said earlier, sometimes you have to invent new technologies to make these things come to life. So is there something in there you'd love to share with us?
Yeah, I think one of the many amazing achievements found in Hondo is really an exercise in packaging, right? In order to be able to drive all those various functions, right, each one requires its own drive or its own motor, right? And so ultimately finding a way to package that into something that still has the right proportion and scale, and it feels like what guests would expect from a character perspective, but also making sure that it works mechanically to not only have the fluidity and the speed that's required, but perhaps even more importantly, the durability and the robustness to repeat that performance over and over and over again, day after day, year after year.
And so with the character, an exhibit as dynamic and as complicated as Hondo Ohnaka, do you have a specific team of people who are responsible for the maintenance and, if something goes wrong and dealing with that on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a phenomenal maintenance team that works in partners with operations at all of our parks and resorts, and they work diligently to make sure that the show that guests see on any given day is just as good as the very first day when we originally programmed the figure.
What's really fascinating about this to me is, the process that you've talked about, where it's outlining what needs to happen to bring this to life is so similar to the strategic design process our teams go with, where, they receive a game and then they have to figure out, okay, how are we going to optimize a robot? They don't know what the robot's going to look like, but they decide a sketch of the characteristics, and then they have to translate that in the same way. And it's really neat that the same robotic process that teams are going through in a elementary school and high school robotics process is what's happening on the big stage as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, I think the most critical thing before you start building anything of any scale or any complexity is to really ground yourself in a clear understanding of what is it that you're trying to accomplish and what are the basic requirements of that object, because it's a lot easier to make those decisions and iterate on them early than it is to decide once the thing percent constructed that all of a sudden you want it to do a new thing that you hadn't contemplated early in the design process.
Libby and I are just nodding our heads here because it's absolutely so relatable. The question that you're asking yourselves: what is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the problem we're trying to solve? And go back to that. Libby, chat is buzzing right now. There's a lot of good stuff in here.
Yes.
You want to take away some questions, please?
Absolutely. So our first one is again very specific to Hondo. How are you able to capture those lifelike movements? Are there tracking markers on actors, or is that all kind of programmed from the base that you've built? And then we've got a bunch of questions about how you got to do what you do, because everyone wants to do it. But let's talk about Hondo first.
Yeah, Hondo is actually 100% hand animated. So we have an absolutely phenomenal figure animator who, using a 3D animation software, first pre-visualizes what all of the functions will do to make sure that it's driving that performance in a way that feels believable, true to the character. And then ultimately the sort of translation process where that then actually gets played back on the real production hardware. And invariably what you'll find, right, is there's a slight discrepancy between what's simulated and what actually happens in real life. And so there'll be a final sort of tuning and polish phase to make sure that the performance that you're seeing on the actual figure is exactly what's intended.
I think any member of the FIRST community watching from the chat understands the there's slight differences between the code and what it'll do on the field. So we have to, try it again. That's definitely another process that seems pretty similar between FIRST teams and Walt Disney Imagineering. There's a ton of questions about your career and your background. And a lot of them are totally aimed at taking a role on the team and getting to work with you. What kind of background and experience do you have? What was your degree in? What was your journey to becoming an Imagineer?
Sure. So my personal background is actually in theater. I studied theater at UCLA and also focused really heavily on interactive and interaction design while I was there as well. But one of the things about Walt Disney Imagineering that makes it so unique is the scale and the complexity of the things that we build is truly on the level of almost creating mini cities. And so to do that, it requires an incredible breadth of talent. So, we have over 140 different disciplines that all work in collaboration to bring all of these experiences to life. So, it's everything from mechanical engineers to landscape architects to material scientists to writers to musicians. So there really isn't one specific area of study important or critical to become an Imagineer, because really we take advantage of a breadth of talent. Really, I think the most important sort of attribute of an Imagineer is a hunger and a desire to continue to learn and to sort of push the boundaries of what's possible. And that can come from anyone, regardless of what they happen to study in school.
I mean, it sounds quite a bit like there's someone else I know who talks a lot about enthusiasm and, being excited about what you're doing and how it serves you well. I don't know. There's a TED Talk or something. Anyway, I think this has just been so incredible. I mean, there's lots of questions about sort of your design process. S3529, want to make sure I get the numbers right in our chat here. How do you avoid, as a team, getting bogged down in the small details, like worrying about the position of one specific finger if you're problem solving on your designs?
That's a really great question, and something that all project teams really need to make sure that they keep a close eye on. Oftentimes you can get really close to something. You can spend so much time working on a project that you start to see, little details and little idiosyncrasies that maybe might not be as readily apparent to others. So a really important thing is to always get a set of fresh eyes. So, whenever we're programming a figure, for example, right, it's not just the project team that's looking at the ultimate character performance, right, but we're bringing in, peers and other folks that, may work in other parts of the company to also get their feedback, because it can be really easy to fall into the trap of obsessing about things that ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, might not actually be that big of an issue.
So, one of the other things that I've always wondered is when you're working on Star Wars type projects, and the fandom is so dedicated, and so they care about these characters so much. How do you feel a pressure to, like, we have to get Hondo right? We have to be true to their experience, or like, is that a lot of pressure, or is it just like, no, we have a plan for what this character is going to look like, and we're just going to make it happen?
No, we had an incredible sense of both excitement and also responsibility in creating everything in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I think you absolutely touched on it, right? That we knew that there's 40-year fandom of people who've been, champing at the bit to have that opportunity to step into a galaxy far, far away. And so we wanted to make sure that we were delivering against those expectations. So as I mentioned earlier, that meant partnering with, Lucasfilm, Skywalker Sound, Industrial Light and Magic, all the original creators, writers, directors, that on the actual films, to make sure that it had that level of authenticity. So, for example, the costume that Hondo wears was sketched by an artist up at Lucasfilm was actually patterned originally by a costume designer in Pinewood Studios, actually working on the latest trilogy, and then was then translated by our amazing internal figure finishing team into the costume that you see today. Dave Filoni, the director of the creator of the character, was involved in the creation of the figure. The original voice actor from the show was also part of the experience. So needless to say, we spent a considerable amount of time and effort making sure that we were getting, every last detail that we possibly could as right as it could possibly be.
That is so cool to hear. Like those details were just really looked into, and that's just really, really neat. Asa, this has been really inspirational, and I think it's been great for our community. But do you have any last wisdom you'd like to share with our community or for the aspiring Imagineers out there?
I would just say continue to be curious, continue to think of new and exciting ways to take an existing technology or principle and turn it on its head and turn it into something new and amazing and wonderful.
That is really great advice. Asa, thank you so much for being here. Thanks to Walt Disney Imagineering, everything for all the support at first and everything that you've done, and keep doing cool stuff out there. And we're going to come see it.
Thank you guys so much.